Michael was 24 years old, and he was not happy with the way he was living his life. Every morning he woke up late, checked his phone for almost an hour, and then rushed to get ready for the day. He had many dreams, but he never worked seriously toward them. He wanted to become successful, speak English confidently, become healthier, and earn more money. But every night he told himself that he would start tomorrow. One Monday morning, Michael woke up late again. He looked at the clock and realized that he had only 20 minutes to get ready. He quickly got dressed, skipped breakfast, and left his room. While walking to work, he suddenly stopped and looked at his reflection in a shop window. He looked tired, unhappy, and completely lost. For the first time, he honestly asked himself, "What am I doing with my life?" He stood there for a few seconds and thought about all the promises he had made to himself. He had been saying tomorrow for years, but tomorrow never came. That morning, Michael decided that he would stop waiting for the perfect time. He would give himself 60 days to become a better version of himself. He took out his phone, opened the Notes app, and wrote 3 words, 60 days, start today. He did not know how difficult the next 60 days would be, but he knew that his old routine had to change. He decided that the next morning would be different, and for the first time, he made a real promise to himself. The next morning, Michael's alarm rang at 6 o'clock. For a few seconds, he wanted to turn it off and go back to sleep, just like he had done many times before. But then he remembered the 3 words he had written on his phone. 60 days, start today. He slowly got out of bed and opened the curtains. The morning air was cool, and the streets outside were quiet. Michael drank a glass of water and stood in front of the mirror. Today is day 1, he said to himself. He did not try to change everything at once because he knew that would be too difficult. Instead, he chose 5 simple habits. He would wake up early, exercise for 20 minutes, spend 30 minutes learning English, read for 20 minutes, and avoid wasting time on his phone in the morning. After making his plan, Michael put his phone away and went outside for a short walk. At first, everything felt uncomfortable. His body felt tired, his mind wanted to stop, and he kept thinking about his old routine. But he continued walking. After 20 minutes, he returned home feeling slightly different. He was not successful yet, and nothing in his life had magically changed, but he had done something important. He had kept the first promise he made to himself. After breakfast, Michael sat at his desk and started learning English. He listened to a simple conversation and repeated every sentence aloud. His pronunciation was not perfect, and he made many mistakes, but he did not feel embarrassed because nobody was watching him. He repeated the same sentences again and again until they became easier to say. That evening, Michael looked at his list and realized that he had completed almost everything he had planned. He smiled and said, "Maybe I really can change." But Michael did not know that the hardest part of his 60-day journey was still ahead. The first day had been easy because he was excited, but staying consistent when the excitement disappeared would be the real test. On the second day, Michael woke up at 6 o'clock again. This time, getting out of bed was a little easier. He followed his morning routine, drank water, exercised, and then sat at his desk to practice English. But by the third day, his motivation started to disappear. He felt tired after work and wanted to spend the evening watching videos on his phone instead of reading or studying.
He looked at his 60-day plan and thought, maybe I am trying to do too much. For a moment, he wanted to quit. Then he remembered something he had learned from a book. You do not need to feel motivated every day. You simply need to keep your promise to yourself. So Michael decided to make his routine easier instead of giving up. On busy days, he would exercise for only 10 minutes, read 5 pages, and practice English for 15 minutes. His goal was no longer to be perfect. His goal was to be consistent. During the first week, Michael made several mistakes. One morning, he woke up late and missed his exercise. Another day, he forgot to practice English because he was busy at work. In the past, one bad day would have made him stop completely. But this time, he did something different. He simply started again the next day. At the end of the first week, Michael opened his notebook and wrote, "I did not have a perfect week, but I did not quit." That sentence made him feel proud. He was beginning to understand that changing his life was not about becoming a completely different person overnight. It was about becoming a little better every day. In the second week, he noticed another important change. He was spending less time on his phone. Instead of checking social media every few minutes, he started using that time to learn something useful. His English was also slowly improving. He could understand more sentences, remember more words, and speak with less hesitation. One evening, while practicing in front of the mirror, Michael suddenly realized that he was no longer afraid of making mistakes. He smiled at himself and continued speaking. For the first time in many years, Michael felt that his future was actually in his own hands. But just when he started becoming comfortable with his new routine, something unexpected happened at work.
The unexpected problem came on a Monday morning, when Michael arrived at work and learned that his manager needed him to take responsibility for an important project. It was a big opportunity, but Michael immediately felt nervous. In the past, he would have avoided the responsibility because he was afraid of making mistakes. He thought about telling his manager that he was not ready, but then he remembered his 60-day promise. He took a deep breath and said, "I will do my best." His manager explained what needed to be done, and Michael listened carefully. He wrote down every important detail and asked questions whenever he did not understand something. That afternoon, he went home feeling worried about the project. He knew that he had never handled something this important before. His old habits told him to relax, forget about the problem, and watch videos on his phone. Instead, Michael opened his notebook and divided the project into small tasks. He told himself, "I do not have to finish everything today. I only need to finish the next step." He worked for 1 hour, took a short break, and then continued. The next morning, he arrived at work early and started working again. Every day, he completed one small part of the project. A week later, his manager looked at his work and said, "You are doing a great job. I can see that you are taking this seriously." Michael felt proud because the compliment was not only about the project. It reminded him that his new habits were beginning to change the way other people saw him. He was becoming more responsible, more confident, and more willing to face difficult situations. But Michael also learned an important lesson. Success does not mean that everything becomes easy. Sometimes, success means doing something difficult even when you are afraid. By the end of the third week, Michael had become much more disciplined. He was waking up early, exercising regularly, practicing English, reading every day, and spending less time on his phone. However, he still had one major weakness. Whenever he compared himself with other people, he immediately lost confidence. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Michael saw an old classmate who had a successful career, a beautiful house, and an exciting life. Michael looked at the pictures and suddenly felt that he had achieved nothing. He closed his phone and sat quietly in his room. For the first time in several weeks, he wondered if his 60-day journey was really worth it.
Michael sat quietly in his room and looked at the pictures on his phone again. For a few minutes, he compared his life with the life of his old classmate. He thought about the house, the expensive car, the successful career, and all the things he did not have. He started feeling disappointed with himself. Then he remembered how different his life had been only 3 weeks earlier. Just 21 days ago, he could barely get out of bed on time. He spent hours on his phone, avoided difficult tasks, and was always telling himself that he would change tomorrow. Now he was waking up early, exercising, learning English, reading books, and taking responsibility at work. He realized that he had been looking at someone else's results while forgetting his own progress. Michael opened his notebook and wrote, "Do not compare your beginning with someone else's middle." He read the sentence several times. Then he put his phone away. From that night, Michael decided to spend less time looking at other people's lives and more time building his own. The next morning, he started his routine with a different mindset. He was no longer trying to become successful just to impress other people.
He wanted to become successful because he wanted to respect himself. During his English practice that morning, he learned a new sentence. Your only competition is the person you were yesterday. He repeated it several times. The sentence stayed in his mind throughout the day. Whenever he felt slow or tired, he reminded himself that progress did not have to be huge. Even learning 5 new English words, exercising for 10 minutes, reading a few pages, or finishing one small task was progress. By the end of the 4th week, Michael had developed something more valuable than motivation: discipline. He no longer needed to feel excited before taking action. He simply followed his routine because it had become part of his life. One evening, his manager called him into the office and told him that the project he had been working on was almost complete. His manager was impressed by his effort and offered him another important opportunity. Michael thanked him and walked back to his desk with a big smile. A month earlier, he would have been afraid to accept such responsibility. Now he felt ready to learn and grow. Michael realized that the biggest change was not happening outside him. It was happening inside his mind. He was beginning to believe that he could handle difficult things. But there was still one more challenge waiting for him, and this time it would test not only his discipline, but also his confidence.